Welcome, metalheads, and thanks for checking into Friday 13th YouTube channel. Also, thanks for checking into part 2 of this interview with Devon Graves, the singer from Psychotic Waltz. Now, Psychotic Waltz are one of my favourite progressive metal bands, alongside Fate's Warning. Two bands I highly recommend and respect. So, like I said, this is part 2 of the Devon Graves interview. There's going to be a part 3 and maybe a part 4. I'm just editing those now. But this is a really interesting interview because we talked about everything that Devon Graves has done. Everything from Psychotic Waltz, Social Grace album, Into the Everflow, Mosquito and Bleeding, and also the new album, A God-Shaped Void. If you haven't heard it, came out 2 years ago, check it out. So we also spoke about his other bands that he's done, The Last Tribe, and a Shadow Theory, which is a great album. Kind of reminds me of King Diamond, so if you like King Diamond and that sort of eeriness, check it out. It's a really interesting album. So, thanks for watching, metalheads. Be safe. Please share on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and especially on Facebook groups. So thank you, Devon, for the interview. You're one of my favourite singers. You're a rock brother. So take care, everybody, and look out for more interesting interviews coming soon. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Wow, how do you get such a unique voice? Because you really do stand out from a hell of a lot of singers. I really admire you as a singer.
Well, thanks. I kind of missed the question though. What did you ask?
I said, how did you get such a unique voice? It's really hard for people to get.
Well, it's not unique. It's that I'm just a very bad impressionist, especially like if you listen to the first Psychotic Waltz record. That was when I was like so young, and I was so I would get influenced by a lot of people by then. By then I was really consuming, like I was backtracking on all the music that I had kind of missed in the 70s, because I was very narrow it was Sabbath and Hendrix and Rainbow, and I mean that's what I was learning on guitar. I didn't have this wide palette nor the budget to buy every record that comes out, so I had to go back and rediscover Pink Floyd, rediscover Jethro Tull, rediscover so many of these like Bowie and Alice Cooper and stuff, and Bob Marley. And as I would rediscover them, I'm writing music in Psychotic Waltz, right? So I'll have like, this song I want to sound like Ian Gillan, or this song I want to sound like Bob Marley, this song I want to sound like Bowie, and this song I want to sound like Ian Anderson, and I would set out to do that, but I'm not that good at doing it, right? so I'm singing like, so it doesn't sound like them. It sounds like me being unique, but it's me trying to sound like them. And but as I grew further and further along, doing more and more albums, I started to kind of find myself. I started to find it. It started by the second Psychotic Waltz album that I remember specifically on the song "Out of Mind" is where I really departed from like Dio. And I remember seeing Dio live around that time, and every time I've seen him, he's just been monstrous. From any age, he's just a monster, solid. I've never heard a bad sound come out of his mouth ever. But I remember at that moment, this is probably Lock Up the Wolves tour. I'm not sure, somewhere parallel with, at least by the time I had written Out of Mind. So maybe 1990 or something like that.
Right.
And I remember seeing Dio, and I was really close, but I remember thinking, I'm not trying to be that anymore. I'm different than that. I'm, in fact, really different from that now, and it's kind of a good feeling.
Wow. So getting back to the Olsen name, what does Olsen mean? Who came up with that name?
Ripped off from a story. That's why we didn't keep it, because it was do you know The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
No, I don't. But I know the film.
These books. There's even movies about it nowadays, but back then it was just a book. And it wasn't even a book I'd read. They already had the name, and I didn't like it because it came from a book. I always wanted the band name to be like something you've never heard before, you know, like Led Zeppelin is a great example. My favorite band name ever is Black Sabbath, but then I know they got that from a movie, but not a movie I ever seen. But that's the best band name in my opinion.
I mean, I love the Oslan logo. I mean, I sent you some pictures
I like
today.
the logo, and
Yes.
but yeah, I not only did it come from a book, but it came from a book that didn't really mean very much to me personally. You know, it's a good. It's not that it's a good book. It's just not where I'm coming from. You know, and yeah, I wanted it to be something a little more unique. Actually, the reason we actually changed the name because I didn't want to keep the name, but they did, and so we did. But we did that first demo as Oslan, and that was the turning point where we decided to change it because there was some Irish folk band or something, some other band with that name. So we just
Yeah, I think you remember you telling me in Germany when I met you a couple of years ago about that story about some Irish band.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean that demo. There's some really good songs on that. I'm surprised it didn't make the Social Grace album.
You know, it was only supposed to be to chase to chase the stars and no glory. Ward had kind of cashed in his college fund to make that demo, and you know, you have this reel of tape. It's about this big, you know, about this thick of tape, and those reels cost like $200-300, you know, and each reel is about 15 minutes, you know, and we laid down the basic tracks for To Chase the Stars and To Know Glory, and they did it kind of live on the floor, you know, and even though they overdubbed the guitars later, they played everything all together. And then since they were all set up, I'm like, you know, we have enough tape to do another song. And like, maybe not, maybe there is, maybe there's not, you know. So it's like, I really pushed him, let's do Spiral Tower. And you want to, yeah, let's try it. And now they have that really long feedback intro, right?
Yeah.
So that was taking up a lot of time. and the funny thing is like, we were all really, I wasn't singing, you know, they were just playing. And I remember sitting there with the engineer, we were like really nervous, like as if this was going to fit. And it turned out like, that's the tape coming off the reel, right?
All right. Okay.
Just enough. The song ended, then the tape came off the reel, so it was perfect. And then that's the only song we kept in the end, you know.
I mean, I've actually got the original demo for that and the original Psychotic Waltz demos. I guess they're worth some money.
When we did that second Psychotic Waltz demo, I remember we were originally doing it on Brian's 8-track. He had this little, it was really actually cool, this machine he had. I wanted one so bad. It was just like an 8-track reel-to-reel machine. You've seen those 4-tracks that use a cassette tape, right?
Yeah.
And well, this was like an 8-track that had a little reel-to-reel. So it was like, but it was still one piece console. So I really envy that thing. And we were making our demos on that without really knowing much about how to really record right or anything like that. But we were going to release these demos that way. And I remember I was the one that spoke up, and I said, you know, we shouldn't do this. We can't have a demo that sounds as good as this Oslan demo, because that was one of the things that set us apart, is that we went into a good studio and we got a really good recording. We had a really good engineer, and it was really fine for the time, especially compared to our friends that were making demos and stuff. Ours was like sounded like kind of pro level stuff. And And so I was like, we can't release our first demo like that and then release our second demo recorded in like a garage situation. We need to kind of keep the quality level up.
Step up the game if you can.
Yeah, and so then I don't even remember where we got the money. It was probably just from gigs and selling T-shirts. As we were pretty, having Mike Clift as an artist, gave us a real edge.
Yeah, he passed away. Did he pass away? He did all the artwork for you, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. There's
fantastic artist. Real abstract, really weird artwork. I love it.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of everything he did. I could have lived without the impaled bodies and things like that. But I liked his. When I think of it now, how everything was just done with pen and ink, and he was really, really remarkable. But he made these shirts that people would want to buy. Like our flyers looked awesome when we were passing out flyers. The flyers look exactly like that shirt you're wearing. We're playing at some club, and the flyer looks like, like your shirt. And that was the kind of people like that. People that, I don't know, probably had a lot to do with people coming in. And then when the shirts were hanging up, they would sell out because people thought the shirts were awesome,
Yeah, they are.
So all that really helped, us to have that, this kind of self-sustaining career a little bit and make our own demos and stuff. And it was slow going to do it that way, but it was at least possible. And I think that Mike Clift's artwork is a big reason why.
So how did you come up with the name Psychotic Waltz? Because it's a fantastic name. I mean, come on, man. I mean, even the logo is fucking amazing.
The logo is kind of an adaptation from the Olsen thing, because we all like the Olsen logo. We like the candle. You see the candle remained. And you could even see on the shirt you're wearing, we like the kind of this, what we call this Alka-Seltzer bubbles coming off it, which is different from Olsen. But the font itself is very similar to the Olsen font, so we kind of like preserve that. And but I had a song with that title, as you know, as you well know, and that song was first, and I don't know, there was just this time where we were looking for a name, and Ryan just made a joke. He was saying, "Yeah, you know what? Ward should wrap himself in like plastic wrap and do silly walks on the stage." And I don't know, he said I should do something. I don't remember even what it was. And he's like, and we should call ourselves Psychotic Waltz. And they laughed, and I didn't laugh. I remember not laughing, going, that's kind of a cool name. That's kind of a cool idea, don't you think? And then they're like, I don't know, maybe. And then we all kind of thought, oh, we think we like this. So if we still like the name tomorrow, let's keep it. So
what other names did you have when you was high?
Well, every album we have has been.
Okay, then I'm going to ask you about the Social Grace album. So it is an amazing album. Now, the first time I heard that album, I fucking hated it. I thought you guys were weird.
That sounds reasonable.
That's no disrespect to you guys. I hated it, and now it's one of my all-time favorite albums of all time. I absolutely adore it.
Well, see, that's the thing, and that's why our audience is so small. Is because like you are very rare in that you heard something and you hated it, and somehow you listen to it again.
It's my favorite, one of my favorite albums of all time.
You've listened to it enough times to where then you change your mind about it. And that's probably a bad strategy for musicians to write music that requires that process, and but we were always trying to kind of work on that a little bit. Like, I think my voice is weird. I especially on that album, I don't like it myself. There are moments that I like, but by and large, I don't like the timbre of my voice for the first two albums, even the third album. On Bleeding, I started getting somewhere, I felt, with the timbre. the timbre of my voice. I had good range and stuff, but I just don't think I had the best quality in my timbre, especially in certain ranges. Yeah, I'm just trying not to sound like Ozzy, you know. My whole career, I'm trying not to sound like Ozzy. Acquired a taste for Ozzy's singing, and I remember the moment that was, and I was 14 years old, and a friend of mine named David Ferris had a little boombox, and he played Sweet Leaf, just blaring it out, or at least part of it, you know. This was in a classroom. I guess, you know, before class started or after class ended or something. And the song Sweet Leaf comes on. And I'm like, who is that? He's all this Black Sabbath. And like the riffs, I'm like, yeah, it sure sounds like it, but this is much better singing, you know, like I really liked it. And I immediately went out and bought Master of Reality. And then I started to really like Ozzy a lot, like from that album on. And then I liked the first album too. Now, kind of like, you know, you and his Social Grace, or I actually like Ozzy's voice on the first Sabbath album. I actually, the older I get, I kind of notice how good he really is, you know, how good he really was. Because he, like me, he has a timbre that bothered me a little bit, similar to how my timbre can bother me, and it's a similar timbre. But Ozzy is always on pitch, always, and and his voice is always there. Like, he has a little trouble with rhythm sometimes. He wants to go a little fast. Well, no, you know what? Maybe it's not his fault, because like Black Sabbath plays their songs much slower live. And I think Ozzy's trying to sing him at the proper tempo anyway. But his pitch is always just perfect. And so I started to notice, well, there's something really, really good about him. And once I acquired it, then he like got better and better and better and better. Like, I think his peak was on Sabotage, right? Like, he started to really, to me, sound good on the second Black Sabbath album, but even on Paranoid. Yeah, I loved his voice then. But by the time he did Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, he kind of went up a notch. Like, he got all of a sudden like a really good rock voice, you know, like the last 20 seconds of the song Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, it's just some of the best rock singing ever performed, you know. And there's a lot of songs on that record or on Sabotage where he's just belting with the best of them, man, with this really great, gritty distortion, excellent pitch, and just really, really phenomenal.
I mean, like, getting back to Social Grace, like I said, I mean, when I first heard your album, I couldn't get into the vocals, the music, I thought it was too weird. But I am a drummer, so I kind of appreciated it. And I just realised how great your vocals and Dan and Brian's guitar work, it's so bizarre and weird. Nobody on this planet has a guitar song like them. I don't know where they get it from, but it's just something from me, it's unique.
It's that kind of like the sum is greater than the part, you know, the sum of the parts, you know, then together is, when they get together, there's like this third element or something. Because
it kind of reminds me of like a whale talking, like the whales in the sea, when they have that real weird wow sound. It's like, whoa, where the hell did they get that from? Nobody does it.
That sounds like a lot of Dan's playing too. Dan has some really cool slow bends and a little bit of echo trailing behind that and stuff. But Dan and Brian together, I don't know, there's something that happens that like I said, it's kind of like two guys coming together, but they're almost being like a third thing that comes. Mike Clift used to say that about the band. He would say that there was a sixth member. Like, when we were all playing together, there's us each doing our individual parts, but there's some sixth component that somehow forms in there.
It's like in the universe, the cosmos or something.
Starts between their guitar playing. I really think it starts there with those two guys and just the way they think. And maybe it was like the way we all used to think was always, we'd want to throw you a curveball. Like, because we wouldn't want to do what you expect us to do. And I would do that melodically also. And so I would deliberately not resolve my melodies on an obvious resolution. I would instinctively know the obvious resolution, but I would intentionally avoid it to throw you off. And they're the same way. I remember had this goal that they wanted to make music that another guitarist couldn't possibly figure out, or that's at least what they strived for, you know.
But they've achieved it.
And so it was that kind of thinking. That's what made us different, is because we were actually trying to deliberately put things out of place, but still in a valid way. You know, it would be musically valid. It just wouldn't be obvious. And we would avoid choruses. We would avoid hooks, which is of course detrimental to any band. That nobody should ever set out not to do that. I mean, hooks or things that are resolved or things that are memorable are actually the thing that make people want to come back to your music, you know, because they remember just enough of it to want to hear it again, you know. But the way we were making music, you can't remember that. And so it's out of your head when the record's over. And unless you're a guitar player, maybe a drummer, you know, you aren't really going to pay much attention to it. But if you are a guitar player, you might get sucked in because most of our fans are musicians.
That's what I did. I got sucked into Social Grace just by the weirdness and everything. I thought, unique. This hasn't been done before.
Well, you know, that record came out when we made that record. We had about 4 albums worth of material we could choose from. You know, we had been writing so long. We had all that Aslan stuff. We had all those 5 songs, those 8 songs that I wrote. Only one of them you've ever heard. There's all kinds of other stuff. But as we write new music, it would start to, when we got to do a record, it's like, okay, this new song's much better, so we'll do these. But we have a Psychotic Waltz and Spiral Tower and certain songs from the original batch that were like these standouts that we bring too. So yeah, on that record, we had a lot of material to choose from. It's a very good position to be in, you know. Now when we make a record, you know, we could go back and revisit some of those songs. We still have an album's worth of stuff that's unreleased, but we aren't interested in that. We want to go forward, you know, do something new.
So why the name Social Grace? Because it's and the cover for the artwork is just bizarre and weird. It goes with the music, no doubt about it.
I think I got that from Jethro Tull. I think I got it from the song "My God." You know, it was kind of like a way. It's kind of a way to sum the record up, because the record was very much from my observation of the world and the state of the world, and you know, like songs like Successor, for example. You know, what that song is about, you know, back then, I don't even know why I would have come up with that, because it's really true now. It is about like creating technology, becoming dependent upon that technology, and then that technology becoming so powerful that it kind of controls us.
Right. Yeah.
We're kind of like obeying it instead of it obeying us. Then we start to obey it. And when I wrote that song, I didn't have a computer. I didn't know anybody with a computer. You know, we were recording on analog tape, and I don't even think a home computer was a thing. Not that I think I had a friend of mine had like a Radio Shack TSR-80. You know, some little computer with a green screen, you know, monochrome green screen. And
yeah,
I don't even know what you're supposed to do with these things, you know, but it was expensive and it did nothing. Maybe a word processor or something, you know. So yeah, I don't know where I got the notion to write such a song, but I guess I, later on that started to kind of, I don't think I caused it, but I might have predicted it.
It's a brilliant album. I mean, the artwork is just bizarre. I mean, I'm so glad that he made T-shirts of that album cover.
That was, I was kind of surprised. I saw the original work of that cover, and I don't think that I had ever seen it before. But it was done where Mike would draw on paper with pen and ink, and then he would cut it out and then paste that onto, like, he would make the background, and then he took the characters, he drew them and cut them out and then pasted them on. And so it was like this hand drawn, cut and paste sort of layout. And it was interesting because he, at that time, built us a stage set just like that, with the same figures cut out. The sun, cut out, would be hanging up, and the dancers were there, and the jester was there, and they were all, made by the same artist, cut out, standing up on stage just like they're standing up on the stage in the when you turn the back of the album, and you can see that everything is a fake prop, right?
Yeah, right.
And,
yeah.
That's, we really had that there too. And yeah, that's just brilliant, having a guy. He was really like the sixth member of the band. He really was. And he was the visual side of it. And he has a lot to do, I believe, with our early success, because, when, like, consider Iron Maiden, right? Iron Maiden's awesome, but would they be quite as awesome without Eddie?
No.
Maybe not quite as awesome. Maybe would not have gotten my attention, but like as a 15, 16-year-old kid, the Killer album cover is pretty cool. Number of the Beast is even better, those are good album covers. And I kind of think Social Grace is somewhere along those lines, but more like, it's its own thing. Then again, the Jester, something just came to me, that there's that Jester. I remember that I drew a picture, like a Psychotic Waltz, and then I drew a picture of a Jester with a skull face dancing with a woman in a dress that was like a ballerina,
Yeah.
with a wind-up key in her back. And I drew that and I showed that to Mike. And I'm like, something like this I think would look cool. And he, of course, didn't do that, but he nabbed that Jester and then did it like way cooler, And so, yeah.
It's a very bizarre cover and abstract. It's a very unique cover. I mean, it stands out. It really does.
Well, there's a lot to look at. There's a lot of eye candy.
Yeah. So when you look at the back of that album, what songs were your favourite, Devon, off that album?
I would have to say the ones that I like playing live, like really like playing live, would be like Nothing. I like Successor, but that's really hard to sing. I really like Another Prophet song.
Oh yeah, okay.
I really like that. I like that one for its textures. I like it, for these kids budget financing their own record with gig money. We were bringing in like congas, and bongos and timbales, and by this next album, and I liked adding those textures. On I Remember, I got to play a Yamaha grand piano, and like in a day and age where now we're using samples and everything, like these real instruments, even if it's a tambourine or a shaker or a or whatever it is, that we used like all these real things and put them in there and played them ourselves and stuff. And that gives this rich texture that kind of pulls it away from your common metal or even away from the progressive thing. And we never really looked at ourselves as a progressive band. We were certainly influenced by bands that were progressive, but we never really followed them to that extent. In fact, we kind of started at first, and then we kind of like stopped. We kind of went, we're noticing that there's a lot of bands that are now counting to 5 just to count to 5 and just to throw you off, and trying to kind of do what we were trying to do, but even outdo that, and get into where these time signatures that, okay, they're really mathematic, but if you look around the room where this is being played, it's not really affecting anybody. And that's when we started to notice also, when we got experience playing live, that having songs that are structured so densely, like say a song like Strange.
Yeah, it's a great, I love that song. It's a brilliant
I
song.
love it too. Like, see, that's a great studio song. But when you play it live, especially, when you don't get a sound check and you're playing it at some, festival or something. I remember watching some bands and I started to think, I'll bet one day we're going to look back and laugh at this really high singing, that one day we're going to look back and go, what are we thinking, besides King Diamond.
Oh, you call yourself King Lackey, don't you?
No, I do not.
You did when you signed my CD many years ago. You signed it King Lackey, and you drew a picture of King Diamond.
There was a time I went through a King Diamond phase. That's for sure. There's some King Diamond influence for sure, even on my part. But then I started to notice, like, wow, every band has got a singer trying to sing high. Every progressive band is now like, not like the good older experienced ones, the up and coming younger ones. They were just like getting way too involved with being smarter than their audience, right? Yeah. And then when you see it so exaggerated, you see it in yourself also. And then we start to think, I started thinking about singing, like, who have I ever listened to that's screeching up high all the time? Like, besides Ian Gillan or Robert Plant, who do it with class and do it only at certain times. Their whole gig isn't based around that, And I started to notice, like all the memorable singers, they all are just singing in a natural range. They're all just like, or like Jim Morrison or Hendrix or even Ozzy and Dio to some extent. Dio's a little different because he's got a very unusual thing, because his voice doesn't sound like it's that high. It sounds like it's in a mid range until you try to sing it, and you realize how high he's really singing, but he's just got such girth to it.
It's a bit like Glenn Hughes. Glenn
Hughes is a
monster, isn't he?
He's a whole other kind of beast. Glenn Hughes, he's singing high. But Dio, like, you don't realize how, I mean, maybe the same for Ozzy. Like, you don't realize how high they're singing until you try to sing what they're singing, and it's like, well, it's actually kind of up there. But nevertheless, it's not this stratospheric falsetto-y stuff. And once I started to realize that, I started not to want to sing like that so much anymore. And that's where a lot of people did. Some people only like the Social Grace record, and they only like my singing on that record because I'm wailing it up and with all that emotion and stuff, which is kind of amateur theatrics in my estimation now. A lot of my emotion was, maybe I overplayed my hand in some cases. And but I started to want to get more subtle. I wanted to bring it in, and so I started with that on the Everflow album, and there's not a whole lot of screeching up there anymore.
Right.
And by the time we did the Bleeding album, I pretty much found, like I said earlier, like I kind of found my voice, or at least was at the threshold of finding my voice, where I was no longer doing impressions of other people, or even when maybe I wasn't doing impressions of people, but I just wasn't happy with the timbre of my voice. Even second album, third album, not too happy with most of that. I love the ideas. I love what it could have been, but I didn't know how to sing the way I wanted to sing. The sound that I had in my head wasn't the sound that was being recorded. but there would always be this thing where I would even complain about that. I remember in the first record, I was like complaining, God, I just don't like the sound of my voice. It's not right. It's not it's not how it sounds here when I'm imagining the song. That's not it. And everybody's like, oh, it sounds awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. So it's like, okay, I guess it's awesome, you know, but I never really liked it. And I had to kind of learn how to sing. So, I mean, maybe there's a lot of reasons why that album hit you weird, and maybe my singing was one of them, you know, or my voice, let's say, or yeah, and maybe the musical composition there's a lot thrown at you, but we all learned to kind of back off, and we all learned that there's kind of more value live, because we started playing live. We started writing for songs to be played live, and like I said, we would know that you can go a lot more with just one chord and a groove that sustains. That spreads out across a crowd a lot better than the, you know.
Yeah.
And so we started kind of pursuing that, and what really was a game changer for me, this was when A Social Grace came out. And I was still pretty much into like dark metal. And I remember working at a record store, and there were 2 CDs that came in. One was Candlemass. This would have been in, say, 1988.
Nightfall album, maybe?
Don't remember.
Yeah.
But it was a cool name, you know. There was that, and there was Jane's Addiction, Nothing Shocking. To me, the first album I chose to listen to was Candlemass, because that was kind of my thing. Dark candles, mass, ooh, my sort of thing. And I liked the band. It sounded like, to me, it sounded like Tom Jones sings for Black Sabbath.